My name is Julian. I am a university professor of history and a single father to a brilliant 10-year-old daughter, Lily. My life was defined by order, responsibility, and routine. I lived a quiet, unremarkable existence that I cherished. My credit score was perfect, my teaching career was secure, and my biggest worry was grading final exams. The trouble started subtly, like a hairline fracture in glass. First, it was a sudden notification from my bank. A large, unauthorized transfer had been attempted from my savings account. Not successful, but flagged by the fraud department. I called the bank, changed all my passwords, and spent an hour with security to flag the attempt. They assured me it was likely a random phishing attack. Then came the baffling second incident. My application to renew my passport was rejected. The reason given was, duplicate application pending review. I hadn't applied for a passport. I called the State Department, and they confirmed a new application, complete with recent photos, had been filed in my name just 2 weeks earlier. I felt a cold knot of dread form in my stomach. This wasn't random fraud. Someone was trying to become me. And they were succeeding. The severity escalated quickly. I received a certified letter from my university's Human Resources Department. It was a formal warning about unprofessional conduct and unexplained absences from mandatory faculty meetings. I had been at every meeting. I immediately called the HR director, Ms. Evans, who sounded confused and irritated. "Professor Thorne," she said sternly, "you were visibly absent from 3 department meetings last month. Your substitute, who claimed to be your research assistant, was also highly inappropriate, requesting an advance on your salary." A substitute. I didn't have a research assistant. I realized with terrifying clarity that someone was not just stealing my name and money, but was actively impersonating me, walking around my professional life and causing chaos. I immediately went to the police, filing a massive report for identity theft and impersonation. The detective assigned to the case, Detective Reyes, was sympathetic but overwhelmed. "Mr. Thorne," he said, looking at the volume of my claims, "we see financial fraud often, but someone taking over your job, this is unusual. This person seems to be moving into your life, not just draining your accounts." I felt my secure, carefully built life slipping away. The stranger who impersonated me was jeopardizing my entire life. The next casualty was my daughter, Lily. I received a phone call from her school principal, demanding an immediate meeting. "Mr. Thorne," the principal said, his face grim, "we have serious concerns about Lily's custody. A man claiming to be your cousin visited the school yesterday, trying to enroll Lily in a different, expensive private school. He had paperwork. The impersonator was actively trying to take my daughter." My terror turned into sheer, focused fury. This was not just a crime. It was an attack on the only thing I truly cared about. I immediately hired a private investigator, Mr. Vance, an older man known for his meticulous, discreet work. The police were too slow. I needed answers now. Vance started digging. His first shocking finding was that the impersonator, who had used my name, Julian Thorne, had established a sophisticated digital presence mirroring mine. A new social media profile, professional networking pages, all perfectly mimicking my quiet, academic style. "He's been working on this for months, Professor," Vance told me. "The digital footprint is flawless. He must have access to old photos, personal details, even your writing style." Then came the visual proof. Vance showed me a surveillance photo taken outside my bank. The man was roughly my height and build, wearing clothes similar to mine. But the biggest shock was the face. He was not my twin, but he possessed an uncanny strategic resemblance to me. The same hairline, the same strong jaw, the same academic glasses. "He's not just a stranger," Vance concluded. "He's a professional chameleon who studied you. He's making just enough of an effort to look like you so that a casual observer, like a university receptionist, doesn't question him." Felt nauseous. There was a ghost walking around, wearing my face and destroying my life. The identity theft had become a complete usurpation. The goal wasn't just financial gain. It was total replacement. But why? Why me? Vance focused on the why. He traced the unauthorized transactions and applications, looking for a pattern. Everything led back to a single target, a massive, undisclosed inheritance that was due to me from a distant, recently deceased relative I barely knew, Aunt Clarissa. The university and my stable life were just covers, the perfect way to maintain a respectable facade until the massive check arrived. Aunt Clarissa's estate lawyer had been in contact with me 6 months ago, asking for my current passport and social security details to verify my identity for the transfer. Those were the exact documents the impersonator had obtained and used. The impersonator, the stranger who impersonated me, wasn't after my salary. He was after the millions that Clarissa had left me. The deadline for the identity verification was in 3 weeks. We had 3 weeks to catch him before he claimed my inheritance, potentially crippling my life forever. The university's HR department, meanwhile, had called another mandatory meeting. They wanted to discuss the increasingly erratic behavior of Professor Thorne. I realized this meeting was my opportunity for the public exposure. I had to prove that the man they were seeing was the fraud. I instructed Vance to gather all the visual evidence of the impersonator's actions, the bank photos, the signed documents at the university, and a paper trail of the false passport application. The faculty meeting was set for Friday afternoon. I arrived 15 minutes early, wearing a simple gray suit, my usual style. I sat quietly in my designated chair waiting. Ms. Evans, the HR director, and Dr. Stern, the department head, looked shocked when they saw me. "Professor Thorne, we didn't expect you to be early," Stern muttered, confused. "I wouldn't miss this meeting for the world, Dr. Stern," I replied, my voice perfectly level. The door opened precisely at 3 p.m. And there he was, the impersonator. He walked in confidently, wearing an identical gray suit and my trademark academic glasses. He paused, looked at me, and his confident smile froze instantly. The room went utterly silent. 2 identical men, both claiming to be Julian Thorne, sat 20 feet apart. The impersonator recovered quickly, his eyes flashing with icy menace. "Dr. Stern, who is this man? I believe he is a trespasser. He is clearly distraught and should be removed." Dr. Stern looked from the man who had been attending meetings for weeks to the man who was currently sitting in the room. The resemblance was uncanny, but the shift in demeanor between the two was stark. I stood up slowly, facing the impersonator, but addressing the room. "No, Dr. Stern. I am Julian Thorne. The man standing by the door is the stranger who impersonated me, jeopardizing my entire life for financial gain." The impersonator tried to walk toward me, pulling out a set of official-looking papers. "This is libel. I have my faculty ID right here. I have signed these meeting minutes." "You signed them, yes," I agreed, my voice cutting through his panic. "But which name did you use for the transfer of millions of dollars from an undisclosed inheritance?" "The name of Julian Thorne." The inheritance detail was the first true shock to the faculty. I didn't wait for them to process it. I knew I had to control the narrative completely. I handed Ms. Evans a packet of documents. "Ms. Evans, this packet contains 3 key items. First, a police report confirming the filing of identity theft. Second, the surveillance photo of this man taken outside my bank, attempting to access my private accounts. And third, the unauthorized passport application filed using my details." The impersonator was sweating now. His confidence was completely gone. He realized his meticulous planning had failed. "He even tried to take my daughter Lily," I continued, my voice trembling with the raw emotion I had kept buried for weeks. "He went to her school, claiming to be family, trying to change her enrollment. This is not just fraud. It is a direct attack on my family." The room erupted in whispers. Lily was well loved by the faculty. The emotional gravity of the custody attempt hit them harder than the financial theft. The impersonator made one last, desperate attempt to regain control, shouting, "This man is having a mental breakdown. Look how distraught he is. I'm the real Julian Thorne." Just then, the door opened again. Detective Reyes and Mr. Vance, the private investigator, walked in. I had timed their arrival perfectly. "The police are here," Reyes announced, holding up his badge. "We are here to arrest the man currently posing as Professor Julian Thorne." Reyes walked straight to the impersonator. The man didn't resist. His entire body slumped in defeat. He knew the game was over. The combined force of my real presence, the documented evidence, and the law was overwhelming. As Reyes cuffed him, the impersonator looked at me with a strange mix of hatred and respect. "You were supposed to be too quiet, too predictable," he hissed. "You weren't supposed to fight back. You only studied my routine, not my resolve," I replied simply. "You underestimated what a father will do to protect his child and his name." The impersonator was led out, leaving a trail of stunned silence behind him. The faculty, who had been on the verge of firing me, now saw the profound depths of the danger I had faced. The aftermath was intense and exhausting. The police discovered the impersonator was a skilled con artist named Arthur Kane, who specialized in replacing quiet, wealthy individuals. He had chosen me specifically because of the inheritance and my predictable lifestyle. The university immediately cleared my name, offering profuse apologies. Ms. Evans handed me back my original faculty ID, now carrying the weight of my reclaimed identity. The inheritance was temporarily frozen but secure. The estate lawyer confirmed that due to my immediate action, the funds were safe. The emotional toll, however, was immense. For weeks, I felt like a stranger in my own life. Every phone call, every email, and every door lock felt like a potential threat. My sense of security was shattered. The biggest challenge was reassuring Lily. I explained to her simply that a bad man tried to pretend to be Daddy, but Daddy caught him. She was scared but proud of me for fighting back. I realized that the impersonator had not only stolen my identity but had also stolen my sense of safe anonymity. I was forced to become vigilant and suspicious. Vance, the private investigator, became a crucial asset, not just a hired help. He helped me establish ironclad digital and physical security. We changed every password, every security question, and established new authentication protocols for all my accounts. I even changed my academic glasses, slightly altering my appearance. It was a small but necessary step to break the psychological link to the man who had worn my face. The experience taught me that the quiet life I loved required an immense, unseen amount of vigilance. I returned to teaching, but I was a different man. I was still Professor Thorne, but I was stronger, more alert, and less predictable. My students, having read the news reports, looked at me with a new respect. The biggest relief came from the State Department, who finally approved my real passport. Holding the official document with my correct face and details was a massive symbol of my victory. I was officially me again. The case of Arthur Kane became a landmark case study for digital identity theft, a testament to the sophistication of his crime and the complexity of its unraveling. I started giving lectures on digital security, sharing my story not for pity but as a warning. I emphasized that even the most boring lives can be targets for sophisticated criminals. If you've ever had your identity compromised, your resolve is your greatest weapon. Comment below and share one step you took to reclaim your life. My life's narrative had shifted, from the predictable professor to the vigilant survivor. Lily and I grew closer through the crisis. She saw me fight for her safety and my integrity. She understood that sometimes the greatest battles are fought against hidden enemies. I often thought about Kane's motives. He wanted the easy millions, but he fundamentally misunderstood the quiet strength of the man he chose to impersonate. He saw a target, he found a fighter. The university's formal apology was extensive, guaranteeing my job and tenure. They realized that my fight to reclaim my identity was a victory for the entire institution's integrity. I eventually visited the safe deposit box where the inheritance was secured. The money was massive, life-changing. But the true wealth I gained was the knowledge of my own resilience. The money was just a fortunate postscript to a battle for my very self. I used a portion of the inheritance to set up a scholarship fund in Aunt Clarissa's name, dedicated to students pursuing academic honesty, a quiet tribute to the virtue that Arthur Kane tried to destroy. I realized that the strange who impersonated me, jeopardizing my entire life, had failed not because of his lack of skill, but because of his fundamental failure to account for my emotional attachments. He didn't realize that my quiet academic life was driven by intense love for my daughter, which, when threatened, became an unstoppable force. The memory of the silent, terrified walk back to the guest wing to pack my bags faded, replaced by the memory of the confident, resolute walk into the faculty meeting to confront my phantom. The recovery was long but complete. I was teaching again, grading papers, and walking Lily to school. The rhythm of my life returned, but it was fortified by layers of vigilance. I was no longer just Julian Thorne, professor of history. I was Julian Thorne, the man who fought a ghost and won. The quiet, unremarkable existence I cherished was now marked by a deep, earned security. I stood in my lecture hall, looking at the faces of my students. The fear was gone. The security was real. The stranger who impersonated me had failed. My life was entirely my own again, and the fight to reclaim it made me stronger than I ever thought possible.